Hello, everyone. Today, I am granted with the great honor to welcome you to our presentation, which would actually tell you a story about an application which begins from consistent design, makes its way through our design systems, and goes all the way up to the flexible implementations. The story will be told by my friend Filip, Siderov, a software developer at Labs Bulgaria, and me, Petko Bozhinov, an associate software developer from Infragistics. Filip?
Hello everyone from my side. First, we are going to through the agenda for today. First, we are going to start with the UX consistency and what exactly UX consistency is. Then we're going to cover the topic about design languages and show you two examples. And after that, we are going to see two different implementations of two such design languages. First, we are going to talk about Ignite UI for Angular. And after that, we are going to talk about UI5 web components. In the end, we are going to finish with a demo. And in a matter of fact, we are going to show you two demos today. So let's not lose any more time and get started. So what is UX consistency? This is a question that is not so simple to answer. And to make it easier, I want to answer first of the opposite question. What exactly is not UX consistency? So usually within huge companies, the business of these companies start with a single application. After that, companies add to their portfolio another application and another one. And finally, they're in a hell such like this. They've got some of their applications, they got acquisitions. And for the end users of their portfolio, it's extremely painful to work with different UX designs. So this is a pure example of what UX consistency is not. Now, if we go forward, we can see in this slide now we're going to talk about what is UX consistency. So UX consistency consists of a couple of things. Firstly, we're going to start with a consistent UX design. This means that different applications in our scenario should have the same idea. For example, in this example, this is these cards that you can see on the screen. After that, when it comes to UX consistency, we can talk about aligned common functions. For example, the way that we go back to our previous page, for example, a back button in the top left or in the bottom left, a way to scroll to the top of the page and something like this. After that, we should tell that visual consistency is something that is very useful for the users of such systems, because when people see something familiar, it is very useful for them to get used to the application very fast. And this is literally the last part. It is the familiar patterns. In this example, we can see that, for example, the profile menu is hidden in the top right of the screen, just like the notifications panel and so on. So in a couple of words, we have to say that UX consistency is something that is very hard to achieve, although it sounds very easy, but in the end, it is extremely easy to be noticed. Now, if we take a look at a couple of screens from SAP softwares, we can see that it is obvious that they follow the same rules. As you can see in the top of each page, we can see the shell bar with different menus inside them, application switch. After that, we've got some cards or tables with information. All of these components are following the same logic. Back to you, Petko.
Yeah, thank you. We at Infragistics are like always striving to catch up with the design principles that my friend Filip has mentioned right away. The consistency that we are actually trying to achieve is not within a single application because we are offering components, but we are trying to make the things work in one and the same way, even if with our components, even if those components are styled a little bit different. If I have to sum that up, we are trying to create actual experience to to satisfy the expectations of the customers, rather than bring a specific design and rather than making the components consistent in terms of design. In this way, we can ensure that if the components are styled using one of our themes, or if another theme gets applied to those components, the end users are still going to meet what they expect for. And if we get this scenario even further, if the designers are undertaking a major redesign of our components, well, even then, the end users are going to use the components as they are used to. And in this way, we ensure that our components are consistent. And actually, yeah, this actually sums up our principles, our core principles. We are trying to craft beautiful components that are easy to be used, and in the same time we are trying to let designers natively experience these components using our design system. And on these screenshots here, we can observe different components from our UI kits, which are styled using the beautiful Indigo Dark theme. And although they are providing different kinds of information, the feeling is pretty much the same. And that's exactly what UX consistency is in our terms and in our actually perceptions. Now that I have mentioned design system in my previous slide, I feel like I need to explain to you what exactly a design system is. There are actually pretty much there are so many descriptions out there about like definitions about what a design system is, but I came across one that caught my attention, and I think that it fits the best. It fits this the sake of this presentation the best. And it says that a design system is like the single source of truth, which groups all the elements that will allow the teams to design, realize something that I really want to underline, realize product and develop the whole product. Why I wanted to underline realize, because the design system should not be considered as a single deliverable. Instead, a design system is more like a set of deliverables. It consists of tangible and abstract elements. The tangible are, in my opinion, pretty clear. I mean, those are the UI kits, which are the reusable components, and all the all the styling that comes along them, all the patterns, all the style patterns, etc. Well, the abstract things are more related to the brand of the product. They are like the whole process that is required for an application to start. I mean, from its beginning right to the deployment, the whole process with the validation the validation in terms of users, the designs, the different designs propositions, etc. I mean, all of that will be grouped in one single design system, and users can benefit all the way up from these things into a design system. So yeah, basically SAP are offering their own design system which is called Fiore, and we at Infragistics are crafting the design system called Indigo Design. Well, I will tell you a little bit more about Indigo Design and basically about its I don't know, prototype or not prototype, but the things that we're trying to catch up with when we are designing the system. And in order to make it easily understandable, I will have to take you back to your chemistry classes back in the high school. Well, the things there were actually, the thing there is that I want to mention is the molecular design. The chemistry teacher probably taught us that the 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 smallest component out there, the smallest unit, is the atom. Of course, the atom can be decomposed even further to protons, neutrons, and electrons. But in a matter of fact, if we need a functional unit, well, then the rock bottom is the atom. And when two atoms are chemically bound with each other, or actually more than two atoms, well, then we get a molecule. A molecule is like the next unit, but and when two or more than two molecules are bound together, then we get an organism. And well, the organism can be a simple one, consisting of only of 2 or 3 molecules. It could be an extremely complex and sophisticated organism, like for instance the human body. And the human body is consisted of molecules which are all trying to work together in order to bring the end functionality of the human body, of the whole body. And this metaphor, well, I use this metaphor because if we get back to design, we can see that there are like atoms which are components which are like undecomposable, that cannot be decomposed further, as for instance the list item or the avatar. I mean, those components, they are meant to be like a part of more complex structure. Like for instance, if we take a list item and bind it chemically to another list item, then we can receive a list, and then that list still cannot be positioned inside a blank web page, because in this way, you know, actually without any further clarifications, the single list into a web page is like useless. It makes totally no sense. But if we take many molecules, as for instance the list, and position them together, then we can receive a complex object as for example the card, which consists of both avatar and list and paragraphs and, you know, card box and header. And yeah, that's actually the whole idea that we are trying to catch up with when we're developing components, when we're developing the whole Indigo design system. So yeah, Filip, back to you.
Thanks. And right now I want to share a little bit more about the history of the SAP Fiori design language. So the history of SAP Fiori starts back in 2013, when designers reached to the conclusion that we need a UX consistent behavior of our applications within our portfolio. That's when the Fiori version 1 was born and released. 3 years later, in 2016, the Fiori 2.0 version was released, and the big advantage of Fiori 2 was that it came with built-in functionality that supports mobile devices. This was something amazing back in 2016, for difference since now, because nowadays it is something very commonly used. And nowadays we are talking about Fiori version 3. The main idea behind the newest version of SAP Fiori is that algorithms as well can really win from the software that they are using. So before we start talking about the implementations of these two design languages, we would like to share the demo scenario that both of our demos will be set on. So now let's imagine that we are shop owners and we need an application to keep track of our shop. So most importantly, we need to keep track of our products. We need a way to add a new product, to delete a product, to edit a product, to search or probably sort the product that we have. And besides that, we might have some kind of other systems that are running within our shop, or some statistics, for example, that we want to keep eye on. So this is basically the demo scenario that we are going to see after a while. So now handing over back to Petko.
Yes, thank you very much. Now I want to get you acquainted with the Ignite UI components in Data, and in order to do that, I have summarized like 4 stages of creating our components, starting back from design tools that are used by the designers for creating a static file, which represents the design of a page or of a site. But what's important about that first stage is that actually the designers have to manually annotate those files. I mean, they have to manually add nodes in order for the developers to use them for the reference. There is a lack of interaction between the human and the design at this particular stage. After that, when the sketch file or when the design file is when the mockup is uploaded into the design system, it could be previewed directly into the browser by the developer. And at this particular stage, the designers don't have to worry about annotating the file manually, because they could add interactions that are showing what has to be clicked, for instance, for a certain action to occur, or how to toggle a menu item, or stuff like that. I mean, the annotations aren't required anymore. I think that I have already mentioned that, but the greatest part of this stage is that the developers can preview the file in their browser and can even take style sheets as well as HTML out of the preview. Even though we're still far away from a functional application, but it's a great start. It could be used by reference. Then at the third stage, we're still in the prototyping stage, but the designers and the developers are starting to use one and the same language using these UI kits. I mean, thanks to these UI kits, because the UI kits can be used in both the application and the design. And here is where the whole communication between those two sides occur. And the last stage, which is my favorite, and I'm really excited about it, is where the code generation occurs. The code generation, it is the code generation is actually a thing that is agnostic to in terms of is framework agnostic. I mean, it doesn't really matter what framework does the developer want as an output, because the components that were generated are generic, exactly thanks to the thing that happens in the third stage, where the UI kit offers a language to both designers and developers. And because of that, the components are generic, and they could be later mapped to whatever framework the developers want. I mean, it doesn't have an impact of the generated output at all. So basically, the life cycle is as it follows. We have first the design tools, as for instance Sketch or Adobe XD or Figma, and we have the Indigo design system, and the designers are providing the design system with their sketch files, where all the magic happens, and then we have a generated fully functional application with quality code, which is, I don't know, I think it's pretty amazing. I mean, that's really my favorite part, and I'm really excited to show you how the application generated with our components should look like. So yeah, basically this is an application that's been generated with our components, with Ignite UI for Angular components. On this page, we can see actually a grid that contains information about electronics retailer, and this grid is currently has grouping functionality enabled. We see that the results are grouped by the supplier column. We can add a new record using the built-in add row functionality, where we would, for instance, add the Apple iPhone 5S. And after I have added it, tells us that the row is already here. And I can come here and modify the product. I have to submit weight. I had no idea how much does it weigh. And all right, I think that is pretty enough. And now that we have a draft of our row added to the grid, we need to commit the transaction in order for the row to appear as a data object inside the grid. We can, of course, group the results again by supplier, and if we come here and look at the Apple column, we will see the iPhone 5S. We can, of course, search for it here, iPhone. Here it is. And yes, we can add product using the add product dialog, and we can also change the theme of the whole product. I will personally use the Fluent. That's my favorite theme, the Fluent Dark. It restyles the whole application, which is, I don't know, truly amazing. We can come here to the dash to see the dashboard, what it has inside. It has inventory of the applications. Here we can preview some of the application, some of the products on the applications. Yeah, we can preview some of the products, or we can see an insider for our sales, how the sales are performing, how the orders by channel are doing. We can select whether to show a daily information, weekly or monthly, or even information about the year, or the status for the orders in the day, or within the week, or within the month. So yeah, I think that that's our demo. So now back to the presentation, where Filip will show you, will tell you more about the UI5 web components. Filip, back to you.
Thanks, Petko. So now, right before I start talking about UI5 web components, I'd like to show you what's the current state of the web. As you know, currently out there are many frameworks. Starting with OpenUI5, we've got React, Angular, Vue, Ember, and many more frameworks that are not even in this slide because there was not enough space. What's common between all these frameworks is the fact that they provide a programming model, something like data binding, templating, and so on. Right now, I want to focus on OpenUI5, which is a framework which provides something more than a programming model. It's a framework that comes with built-in controls. In a matter of fact, over 200 controls that come with built-in enterprise-grade features, such as accessibility, theming, internationalizations, and many more things. This is great, but there is one simple issue with all these controls. And this is the fact that they're not reusable within any other programming models. So that's how we came up with the idea of UI5 web components. We wanted to expose these controls within other frameworks, within other programming models. Right now, just before I deep dive to the topic of UI5 web components, I want to briefly summarize for you what exactly the web standard web components is. As I already mentioned, web components is a web standard that is available across all major browsers. The main idea of web components is to create encapsulated HTML tags, just like the regular HTML tags. And the idea is that they would be used in different web pages built on top of different technology stacks. This way, we are going to share UI elements across solutions which are based on different programming models. The community has grown up to understand that this idea is great, and currently out there the support is very, very good, which means that companies like Google are standing behind this project. And in a matter of fact, the whole idea of web components was first introduced by Google back in 2011. And after that, they have focused their Polymer project on web components. So after we have found out what exactly the web component standard is, I want to show you a pure example of how we can use it inside our application. Let's take as an example that we want to provide our users an input field so that they can enter their birth date. What we would usually do, you would give them an HTML input with type date. And right now I'm going to show you the results within different browsers. This is the result that you're going to see on Google Chrome. It's not bad, not terrible, but it is useful. On Mozilla Firefox, we've got something that is way cooler. And finally, you can see that Safari don't even support the native input when the type is set to date. Here we've got a couple of problems. The first one is that after we have talked about UX consistency, we can literally immediately notice that this is not consistent. And the second problem, which is really huge, is that all our users that are using the Safari browser are not going to enter a valid date for sure, because I'm sure that they would not enter the correct format of the date. Instead of providing instead of using the HTML tag input in your code, you can just substitute it with the UI5 web components tag. In this case, we would use the UI5 date picker. So basically, this is the result that you're going to see across all the mentioned browsers: Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, and Safari. So for you as a developer, it is not quite difficult to use the current tag that you can see, the UI5 date picker, rather than the native input tag. But for your users, it would be a lot easier to use this date picker. And if we add the fact that they're going to use it across multiple applications, they would benefit a lot. Now I'd like to compare the frameworks that we've got on the market to web components, because this is a question that is usually not answered very well, and people are wondering what are the differences. So the most important thing to get out from this slide is the fact that web components do not provide a programming model. Therefore, web components are not a framework. Web components is the native web way of sharing reusable code in different places. Web components just take care about the rendering and the behavior of the custom elements. They do not provide programming model, as I already mentioned. They do not provide data binding. One of the most important things about web components is that they're isolated via shadow DOM. This means that their HTML and CSS cannot be accessed from the document. This means that if we are trying to add a global rule, for example, a CSS rule, this would not be possible because the content of the web component is hidden behind this shadow DOM. I'm going to show you in the demo later what exactly the shadow DOM is. And basically, the web components are the native framework to build and share reusable elements. What I mean by that is, for example, if we take React, in React, we can create elements. These elements can be reused and instantiated in multiple places. Just like web components can be instantiated and used across various screens, applications, and everything that you can think of, as long as it is based on HTML. This means that web components can be used in any framework, and literally any framework. This means that it can be used in the current frameworks, as well as in any future framework that is about to come on the market, as long as it is based on HTML. After mentioning so much new things, I think it is the right time to share the browser support. Here on the left of this table, you can see the free APIs that web components are based on: HTML templates, custom elements, and Shadow DOM. As you can see, they're all stably supported in all major browsers. And in the most bottom part of the table, we can see that ECMAScript 6 modules are stably supported as well. This means that UI5 web components support all these browsers natively without the need of anything to be added in your application. Moreover, we have added support for the evergreen browser Internet Explorer by providing polyfills for the APIs that are not supported in Internet Explorer, and by transpiling the ECMAScript 6 code to ES5 via Babel. Now it is time for the demo of UI5 web components. So guys, this is the demo of UI5 web components. This is an application which consists of a couple of cards, as each card represents a system inside the shop. First, we can see that we've got the inventory of the shop. After that, we've got the security cameras. We've got a calendar with some activities. We've got some managers of the stores, and so on. We've got fridges, rooms, temperatures. What we would like to see here in more details is the inventory application. Here we can keep track of the products inside our magazine, where they're in stock, where we need to restock them, whether we need a new product to be added, for example, a bean for $2. We can set whether this product is perishable or not. We can see that the bean is added with no image because we didn't set one. We can sort alphabetically ascending and descending the items. We can search for tortilla, for example, and here it is. So right now I want to point your attention to something that might be familiar to you from the UX consistency slides, and this is the shell bar at the top corner of our application. So in the top right corner, we've got the notifications panel and the profile panel. Here we've got a switch for a theme, and currently we can choose between two themes, the Fiori Free and the Fiori Free Dark theme. You can see that the theme is changed at runtime, so we do not need a refresh of the page. UI5 web components come with 6 built-in themes. We've got some accessibility themes like high contrast black and high contrast white. Moreover, we have provided a support for the SAP theme designer, which means that you can create your custom theme and apply it out of the box to your application. Right now, I want to show you the elements panel. And here, as you can see, we've got some native HTML elements like divs, main header, and inside the main element, we've got something interesting. We've got the element UI5-table. The dash inside the name means that this is a custom element And basically this is one of our web components, the table, UI5 table. When you expand the table, we can see something interesting right here. You can see that the DOM of the table is separated into different areas. The first one here is the shadow DOM. This is where the encapsulation is beginning. From the shadow root inside, you have no access from the document itself. The other part of the UI5 table, as you can see here, this UI5 table columns and table rows is basically the white DOM. Usually the white DOM is used so that developers can provide some content that needs to be inserted inside the shadow DOM. And in this case, the application developer can pass a table column or table row in order that it can appear in the shadow DOM. And basically this is how the encapsulation we talked about is achieved. So this was the demo about UI5 web components. So ladies and gentlemen, this was our presentation for today. We would like to thank you that you have stayed with us till the end.
And of course, if you have any questions regarding our presentation, don't hesitate and just ask.